What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto discover Kiba is actually a girl? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. To say Kiba was angry was a slight understatement, in fact he was livid. Of all the people Naruto could have sent back in time it had to be him. Seriously, what had he been thinking? Sure, he had been the only one around at the time and Naruto had been dying, but he'd seemed like he could have lasted at least an hour before he keeled over. But no, Naruto had insisted that he send him back, so he knew he'd succeeded in sending at least one person back to fix things, as he'd put it. The only problem with that sentiment in Kiba's mind was that he didn't know how to fix half of the things that had gone wrong. He wasn't like Naruto, he hadn't really been a major player in anything after the whole Sasuke retrieval disaster, and even then he hadn't been that major. He only had a vague idea on what had gone wrong in the past, or the present as it now was. He now had this huge responsibility on his shoulders that Naruto had placed on him, the bastard. His only reassurance were the words Naruto had said to him before he'd sent him back. Flashback, forward? Naruto, Kiba noted, looked like shit, and the only thing that was keeping him from telling Naruto just that was that he himself probably looked just as bad. Are you okay, Naruto? Kiba asked despite already knowing the answer. Of course he wasn't okay. Most of their friends were dead, and though they seemed to have won the war somehow, Kiba didn't know how he'd been busy fighting for his life at the time and now didn't seem like the time to ask. Naruto looked at him incredulously. No Kiba, I'm not okay, actually I'm dying. Kiba flinched, so he was going to lose yet another friend. He then noted Naruto's tone of voice. Why do you sound like you're fine with that? Kiba shouted because shit, he'd already lost so many people, he didn't want to lose Naruto too. Because Kurama and I. Kiba blinked at him confused. Kyuubi, Naruto clarified before going on. We have an idea that has the potential to fix everything. This confused Kiba further. What could possibly be done to fix everything this brutal albeit short war had destroyed? Naruto ignored his friend's confused expression and continued on. Kurama says that we can send people back in time, at least in theory we can. Kiba looked dumbstruck. How is duh? Naruto interrupted. Don't ask me how the whole thing works, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But Kurama and the other Biju inside of me seem to, and I trust them. Kiba's eyes widened. Other Biju? Naruto shook his head. It's a long story that we don't have time to tell if this plan is going to work. Kiba nodded before freezing in horror. Wait, you want to send me back in time? What the hell could I change? Naruto looked at him impatiently. We don't have time to be picky, I'm dying if you haven't forgotten. You can make a bigger difference than you think, Kiba, and don't you want to see Akamaru again? Kiba looked at him angrily. That was a low blow. Of course I do, but why can't you send yourself back in time? Naruto shook his head again. Kurama says it's not possible to do it to myself, but I can do it to other people. Then send someone else. Naruto began to look exasperated. Do you see anyone else around here? No, but I can't do this on my own. This is way too big for me to handle alone. You have to see that. I can't possibly handle this by myself. Kiba sounded desperate. I know, Kiba, and I'm sorry, but you're my only hope right now. He paused, looking thoughtful, obviously listening to the creatures inside of him. He smiled. What? Kiba asked, annoyed that couldn't hear the inner conversation. Apparently I have enough chakra left to send 2 other people back with you. Kiba looked relieved. So let's go find 2 more people. No, I'm going to send you back now and then see if I can find anyone else. I'll tell them to meet you. Meet me where? How about Ichiraku? Kiba stared at him. Seriously? Before nodding his agreement. Naruto smiled at him. Now this may feel a little funny. Kiba realized what he was doing too late. He still had so many questions. Naruto, wait. There was a bright flash and then nothing. Kiba had then woken up on his back in what was presumably the past with no idea how far back he was or how he could possibly fix everything that had gone wrong. It was a daunting task to say the least. Naruto hadn't even given him a chance to ask about certain events. Even if Naruto could only give him a succinct version of what needed to be changed, he would have been better off than he was now. His only comfort was the 2 mystery people who may or may not have been sent back with him. His first order of business was working out when he was exactly. He looked down at himself and swore loudly to himself. He looked tiny, he couldn't be older than 5 and that was stretching it. How far back had Naruto sent him exactly? He needed to know. He looked at his surroundings and quickly realized that he was not in Konoha. He was in a forest, but since the forest surrounding Konoha was massive, that wasn't much to go on. He could only hope that he was near Konoha. For some reason this situation felt familiar. Distantly he realized that he was becoming slightly hysterical. This was all too much, so to try and distract himself he decided to try and find his way back to Konoha. This task proved harder than he thought, as even with his enhanced sense of smell it had took him 3 hours to get inside of Konoha, and by then he was pretty sure his family would have noticed he was missing. On top of that, he didn't feel prepared in the least to face his family and friends again. The scars from losing them were fresh to him, and he had to get it into his head that he hadn't lost anyone here. As he got inside of the gates, Kiba knew he was in trouble as he saw his sister Hana, who looked about 11 in his estimations, barreling towards him with her 3 dogs, the Haimaru brothers. At the sight of his big sister, Kiba's chest tightened and his eyes watered. "Where the hell have you been, Kiba? I've been looking all over for you." Kiba racked his mind for an explanation before realizing what day it must be, because he was having some serious déjà vu. Today was the day when he, in all his 5-year-old mind's wisdom, had decided that he was old enough to leave the village on his own, so he had made it his personal mission to sneak out. He figured it would be good ninja training at the time. However, once he had successfully sneaked out, he had become hopelessly lost, and in the previous timeline Hana and his mom had found him just before sunset. At least this time around he'd been able to find his own way back. So now at least he knew that he was about 11 years in the past and he was newly 5. During his recollection he'd unconsciously grabbed his sister, and he now found himself trying and failing to stop himself from crying. Curse this body. He began to sob into his sister's chest. He wasn't sure if it was out of relief or sadness, because the last time he'd seen her she'd been dead, and this was all so confusing. He felt that hysterical feeling he'd had earlier returning, but stronger. Through all this Hana was decidedly confused, as her little brother, who wasn't usually clingy or one for crying, was now doing both. It worried her that something bad may have happened to him. So she scooped her still crying little brother up into her arms and walked back towards the gate. The 2 chunin on duty, a young Izumo and Katetsu, looked concerned. Hana turned to them angrily. "How did you let a 5-year-old get out of the gate without you noticing?" Izumo had the decency to look sheepish. "How did he get away from you in the first place?" grumbled Katetsu, who didn't appreciate being talked down to by a 11-year-old girl. Now Hana looked sheepish before retorting. "He is sneakier than he looks, and it's not my job to watch the gate." Katetsu went to say something else before Izumo stopped him. "We're sorry we didn't see your brother, we're pretty new to gate duty. It won't happen again, we promise." He looked at the sobbing child in her arms. "Is he going to be okay?" Hana nodded. "I'm sure he'll be fine once he's calmed down a little." Kiba was trying to calm himself down, but he was having difficulties. He managed to pull himself together enough to remember that it was vitally important that he go to Ichiraku as soon as possible. So after a few seconds of sobs being reduced to sniffles, he asked, "Can we stop at Ichiraku's?" Hana looked at him curiously. "Why? My friend is going to be there." "Who is this friend?" Hana asked suspiciously. Kiba shrugged. "You'll see if you let us stop there. I don't think you've behaved well enough today to get to see your friend." Kiba pouted at that. "What if I make you a deal?" This piqued Hana's interest. "What could you possibly have to offer?" "If you let me go to Ichiraku, Mom doesn't need to know that anything happened here, and we both know that that is in your best interests, because you would be in more trouble than me. You were meant to be watching me." Hana narrowed her eyes at his blackmail. "I'll agree if you'd tell me what happened in the woods to upset you so bad." Kiba froze at that. He couldn't tell her the truth obviously, so he decided to tell a half-truth. "I was just happy to see you again. I thought I'd never get out of those woods." Hana seemed to accept his explanation before narrowing her eyes again. "And why were you in the woods in the first place?" I thought sneaking out of the village would be good training." Hana smiled at him. "And you got yourself lost in the woods?" Kiba nodded. Hana shook her head and laughed a little. "Well, I hope you learned your lesson." Kiba nodded again. Seeing that he'd calmed down somewhat, she set him down before pointing behind him. "We're here." Kiba span around and looked to see who his salvation was. "Please be Kakashi or Shikamaru." His eyes landed on a small figure sitting at the stand. Kiba groaned. He was going to punch Naruto the next time he saw him. Kiba knew who his fellow time travelers weren't going to be. Hinata, Shino, Neji and Sasuke he knew for certain were dead, and unless Naruto could also raise the dead, which now he thought about it wasn't any more far-fetched than time travel, they were most likely out of the running, but that left several possible options. He just hoped that it was someone that he got along with and was much smarter than him, hence why Kakashi and Shikamaru were his main hopes. Who he saw sitting at the stand was definitely not Shikamaru or Kakashi, but really he shouldn't have been surprised by who it was. Of course Naruto sent one of his teammates. Kiba didn't know Sakura all that well despite the fact that they were in the same circle of friends. They were more acquaintances. Kiba hadn't ever had much interaction with the pink-haired girl. Which meant he was going to have to try and save the future with someone he barely knew, and there didn't appear to be a third person around. So he and Sakura were going to have to get along, but at least he could find some comfort in the fact that she was smarter than him. "Sakura, is that you?" Hearing her name, Sakura turned to look at Kiba. She seemed to be having an inner struggle before clearly losing and descending into slightly hysterical giggles. Kiba was not pleased. "What's so funny?" He frowned. This seemed to amuse Sakura even more as her giggles got louder. Hana, who'd been watching this whole exchange in confused amusement, decided to step in. "You didn't tell me your friend was a girl, Kiba?" Kiba blushed before scowling. He was being teased. Sakura seemed to have sobered enough to talk. She pointed accusingly at her fellow time traveler. "You are late." Kiba was unsure of how to respond to this, so his sister decided to respond for him. "He got himself lost in the woods." Kiba glared at Hana but said nothing to refute her statement. After all, it was true. Kiba then noticed the woman who was next to Sakura. The woman, noticing the small boy's gaze on her, smiled kindly at him. "I'm Sakura's mother, Mebuki Haruno. You must be Kiba. She was very insistent on meeting you here." Hana again chose to reply for him. "Hi, I'm Hana Inuzuka, Kiba's sister." He was pretty insistent too. "I hope you haven't been waiting too long." At the mention of having to wait, Sakura scowled. "We've been waiting forever." "Don't exaggerate, Sakura, it's only been a couple of hours." Hana's eyes widened at this. "A couple of hours and you were okay with waiting?" Mebuki shrugged. "It took about an hour to eat and Sakura insisted that we wait for Kiba to get here. I had a nice chat with the owner of the place, it wasn't that bad." Hana shrugged. "If you say so," turning to Kiba. "Why did you two want to meet up, and why did you choose today to sneak out of the village if you were supposed to be meeting your friend here?" Kiba's mind raced for an excuse. "I needed to talk to Sakura about something and I forgot what day it was." He knew the excuse was lame. Hana rolled her eyes. "Well, why don't you meet up with Sakura tomorrow, because we really need to get home?" So mom doesn't get suspicious was left unsaid. Mebuki nodded. "I could drop Sakura off at the Inuzuka compound tomorrow morning, if that would be okay with your mother, Hana?" Mebuki, it seemed, was aware of who they are, which shouldn't really have been surprising to Kiba as his clan was reasonably well known in the village. Kiba came out of his musings when his sister replied, "I'm sure mom won't mind. She has the day off tomorrow and I'm sure she'll want to meet Kiba's new friend." Mebuki nodded. "See you tomorrow then, we'll be off." Sakura, who had been scowling at Kiba this whole time, stepped forward to whisper in Kiba's ear. "Remember to try and act your age?" Kiba blinked at this before nodding dumbly. He hadn't been thinking about that. Sakura nodded back at him before grabbing her mother's hand and dragging her, presumably in the direction of their house. The two Inuzukas and Hana's three dogs started their own way home in a comfortable silence, which Kiba knew wouldn't last, as he could see his sister was dying to ask him the obvious question. "How do you and Sakura know each other?" This time Kiba was prepared for the question. "We met at the park a few days ago. She's pretty cool for a girl," he said, remembering said girl's advice a few moments previously. That was something a 5-year-old would say, right? Hana narrowed her eyes at the "cool for a girl" remark. "And what did you want to talk to her about?" Secret. Now Kiba knew that was a childish reply, but it effectively shut his sister up for the rest of the walk home. Kiba stopped in his tracks when he saw the compound. The realization that he was in the past hit him again. It was exactly how he remembered it being before pain had flattened the village, and now that was certainly something he needed to stop from happening again. He snapped out of these thoughts when he realized Hana was staring at him. "Are you okay?" "Yes." Hana didn't seem to believe him, but thankfully didn't question him further. "Well, we're home and it looks like Mom and Kuromaru are back from their mission, so let's get our story straight." Kiba nodded. "We could just say that you took me to meet my friend." "Yeah, that'll work. After all, it's not a complete lie." Sume Inuzuka turned her head to look at her kids who had just gotten in. "Where have you two been?" "Hana took me to meet my friend." Hana nodded quickly at this. Yeah, Kiba wanted to talk to his new friend. Sume sensed that there was more to their story than, but decided to humor them. "And who is this new friend?" "Her name is Sakura." "And when will I get to meet this Sakura girl?" She's supposed to be coming over tomorrow. Sume grinned in a way that made Kiba shudder. Oh really? I can't wait to meet her. Kiba was pretty sure that Sakura had never officially met his mother in the previous timeline. He could only hope that she knew what she was in for. After dinner, Kiba excused himself to his room so he could have some time to think and sleep because he was exhausted. Flopping onto his bed, he pondered what for him had been the longest day in his life. He had started at 16 years old fighting on the Allied shinobi forces, and he had ended at 11 years in the past 5 years old again, and wasn't that a complete mindfuck to think about? Thinking about everything that was to come in the next few years: the Uchiha massacre, the invasion by Suna and Otto, Sasuke's defection, and everything with the Akatsuki and the war, he felt that hysterical feeling come back again. He had to think small or he was going to go insane. He guessed that being sent back in time, only his mind remained from his 16-year-old self, which meant he'd lost his muscle memory and his chakra reserves were pretty pitiable, not non-existent, since he was a clan kid who'd been trained to be a ninja most of his life, but compared to what he was used to, it almost felt that way. But at least that gave him something to work on and take his mind off of what was coming. Naruto, it seemed, had only been able to send Sakura back in time with him, and she hadn't exactly been who he was hoping for. However, he didn't really have room to be picky, and Naruto trusted her implicitly, so Kiba would just have to trust Naruto's judgment, though that was difficult when Naruto thought that Kiba would be able to change the future, while he had a sinking feeling that he would make it worse. And again, thinking of that huge responsibility had Kiba panicking, so he reminded himself to think small. For instance, he could be a friend to Naruto much earlier this time around. Yes, that was doable. He could worry about the bigger stuff later. It was with this somewhat comforting that Kiba drifted off to sleep with the sun still in the sky. Kiba woke with a start from a nightmare about the war and seeing his team die before his eyes. He shuddered. There was no way he'd let that happen again. His team was a part of him, and losing them had been just as bad as losing his sister. Looking at the time, he realized that he had been asleep for about 12 hours, and boy had he needed that. He felt refreshed. It was early, but he could hear his sister getting ready to leave for the academy. He decided to get up to see her off, since he had some time to kill. Hannah smiled at the sight of her little brother. You feeling better? You seemed a little off yesterday. Kiba smiled widely. Sleep had done him a world of good. Clearing his head, yep, I feel much better. Hannah nodded before crouching down in front of him. You know not to sneak out of the village on your own now, right? Kiba pouted. Yeah, you should get going. Hannah stood up to leave before smiling slyly. Have a good time with your girlfriend. Kiba spluttered. She's not my girl. Hannah ran out of the door before he could finish. Friend. He guessed he had a little while before Sakura could get here, so he decided to grab some breakfast for himself. He knew his mother would be at the clan's kennels feeding the ninkin. About half an hour later, his mother came in, followed by Kuromaru. Hey Squirt, what time is your little girlfriend getting here? Kiba groaned. Was this going to become a thing? He'd forgotten how much Hannah and his mom had teased him at this age. She is not my girlfriend, and I don't know what time she's getting here. As if to answer the question, a knock sounded. Kiba ran to the door quickly. I'll get it. Opening the door revealed Sakura and her mother. Sakura looked ready to do business, which on her 5-year-old face looked pretty funny, and Kiba, wanting revenge for Sakura's laughing fit the previous day, decided to voice this. You look funny. He remembered immediately after saying this Sakura's infamous temper and all the times he'd seen Naruto inadvertently insult her and be on the receiving end of that monster strength of hers. Seeing the stormy look on her face, he decided in order to preserve his life he should hide behind his mother for protection, who happened to have come to the door behind him. Sume, seeing her son's plan, stepped out of the way. Oh no, if you're going to insult a girl, you have to face the consequences for it. Kiba cursed his mother, who seemed to be enjoying his predicament. Sakura, who seemed to be silently fuming, stepped towards him, grabbing the collar of his shirt, and instead of hitting him as he'd expected, instead started to drag him towards his room. Watching the two 5-years-old leave, Sume and Mebuki turned to each other. So you're Sakura's mother? The rest of their conversation was muffled by Kiba's door being shut by a somewhat angry Sakura. We need to talk. Kiba nodded, dumbly glad that he wasn't being hit, before noticing she was putting something on his door. What are you doing? Sakura didn't look up from what she was doing. Putting up privacy seals. And when did you learn to make privacy seals? During my apprenticeship to Lady Tsunade. I saw how they used them in the Hokage Tower and decided to learn how to draw them, so I looked it up in a book. When did you draw it up? This morning, but that doesn't matter, we need to talk right now. Kiba, glad that she seemed to have forgotten his earlier indiscretion, gladly changed the subject. So how did you end up in the past with me? Flashback, forward? Sakura was not having a good day for when she couldn't find any of her teammates who she'd been looking for ever since their apparent victory. In fact, she couldn't seem to find anyone, at least anyone who was alive, though she didn't like to think about who she'd seen die. Team 10, Team Guy, Sai, Kakashi and even Tsunade were all gone, so even though they'd won this war, it didn't make her feel any better. Most of her precious people were gone. Which was why she was searching so desperately for her remaining teammates now, so she wouldn't be alone. She sensed someone moving towards her some distance away and picked up the pace because she would know that chakra anywhere. Naruto. Naruto looked up at her before grinning. I knew it was you, I could sense. We don't have much time, I need to send you back in time to help Kiba before my body gives out. Sakura blinked at him confused. What are you talking about? I sent Kiba back in time to fix all of this, and I promised I'd send some help, and before you ask how it would take way too long for me to explain, cause I don't entirely understand it myself. Besides, there are some things I need to tell you before you go. I'm not going anywhere, you're hurt, I need to heal you now, she said, moving towards him. He backed away, shaking his head. There's nothing you can do for me, I've taken too much damage, all I can do now is try and fix everything, but you need to know a few things before I send you. Sakura blinked back some tears. Why won't you let me at least try and save you? I've already lost too many people to this war. Naruto flinched at her shout. If this plan succeeds, it'll save everyone. Which is why I need to explain some things before you go, including something you need to know about the Uchiha massacre. I know this sounds like a lie, but Itachi didn't kill them because he went crazy or anything like that. He did it on orders from the council, or specifically Danzo, because the Uchiha were plotting a coup d'état against the village. How do you know all this, Naruto? I heard it from Obito and Itachi. Sasuke filled in some of the details before he. Though Sakura knew deep down what Naruto didn't want to say, she asked anyway, before he what? Naruto looked down. Before he died. Sakura fell to her knees. He's gone too? Naruto nodded grimly, looking back into her eyes. I explained the time travel idea to him before he. And he told me all the details about the Uchiha massacre, who ordered it and everything, cause he thought it'd help whoever I sent back. I tried to send him back in time, but I don't think it worked. I don't think I put enough chakra into it. I think he died before I could send his mind back in time. Sakura got to her feet again, now determined to fix things, because what was the point of winning this war if nearly everyone she cared about was dead or dying? Send his mind. Yeah, when I send you, your body will essentially die, but by sending your mind back it'll create an alternate reality where none of this never happened or something like that. It's kind of confusing. How did you explain all this to Kiba? Naruto's eyes widened before he scratched the back of his head sheepishly. About that. Sakura's eyes narrowed. You didn't explain any of that to Kiba, did you? How did you even find him? Naruto, still looking guilty, looked at the ground again. Well, once Kurama, Shukaku and Yuki explained to me that I had enough chakra to send 3 people, I figured I would explain all this to you so you could explain it to him. You're better at explaining stuff than I am. And he found me after Sasuke. I guess he sniffed me out. He seemed pretty distraught. Obito sealed more than just the fox inside of you then? And you sent Kiba into the past without telling him any of this? That seems kind of reckless. What if you hadn't gotten to me in time? Kurama and the other Biju told me I have about 2 hours before this reality fades or something, and I knew I could get to you in time. I could sense where you were. Still, I don't think that was exactly fair to Kiba. Did you at least tell him you were planning on sending me too? No, Naruto said, looking guilty again. I did tell him to meet whoever I send at Ichiraku. Ichiraku? Why am I not surprised? Who's the third person going to be? Naruto looked thoughtful for a second. I don't know, I can't sense anyone nearby, but if I find anyone I'll send them your way. Now this may feel a little weird. Sakura realized a second too late what was about to occur when there was a bright flash and then nothing. Upon hearing Sakura's story, Kiba, torn between being shocked at the revelation about the Uchiha and pissed at Naruto for not explaining anything to him, he chose the latter. I am so going to kick his ass once he's old enough where I won't feel guilty. He didn't explain jack shit to me. Sakura rolled her eyes. Is that seriously all you have to say? I just told you that the Uchiha were planning a coup d'état, and Itachi, who all this time we believed to be a crazy murderer, is in fact on our side in a way. Well, I wasn't sure what to do with that information, so I responded to the part that was easier to process. What does it mean for us anyway? I don't know, I mean we already knew Danzo was bad news. Danzo is the guy who almost became Rokudame, right? Yeah, and Sasuke killed him, now we know why. So the Uchiha were going to start a civil war. Should we let the massacre happen then? Sakura shook her head. I don't know about that, we should at least try to change it. I think we should talk to Itachi and try to get him on side. Kiba does not like this idea one bit, mostly because it means getting close to Itachi who, though he would never admit it aloud, scares the crap out of him. Mostly because he's not sure he could take him even if he had his full strength right now, because even at 11 with no Mangekyo, Itachi is not someone to be taken lightly. He feels vulnerable in this body, and he's pretty sure that if Itachi doesn't believe they're who they say they are, because who the hell would? He will probably try to kill them, and there wouldn't be a lot they could do about it if he did. Kiba decides to voice his doubts. Talking to Itachi seems like the worst idea ever. If he's on our side later on, it'll make our job that much easier to do. Well yeah, but he'll never ever believe us even if we know stuff we shouldn't know. He'll just think we're spies. Anyway, having him know we're from the future won't change what the Uchiha are planning. Okay, let's hold off talking to Itachi for now, but we still need to get close to the Uchiha clan so we can try and work out their motivations for doing something like that. Your mother is the Inuzuka clan head, right? Kiba narrowed his eyes. Yes, why? Well, she goes to meetings with the other major clan heads, so it shouldn't be too hard to find what clan relations are like. It'll be a little strange if I suddenly take an interest in politics, and anyway I can tell you right now that my clan didn't get on with the Uchiha. I may have been pretty oblivious at this age, but I picked up that much. In fact, I don't remember the Uchiha being friendly with anyone outside of their own clan. Sakura pondered this information for a second. Well, just try to confirm that the Uchiha aren't friendly with the other clans. We should befriend Sasuke as our in with them. Then at least if we decide to talk to Itachi we can get close to him. If we're befriending Sasuke we should befriend Naruto. You know, because his shitty childhood is something that's easier to change at least a little. Sakura looked at him like he was dumb. Which may have been true. I thought that was an unspoken assumption. Of course we're befriending Naruto. Kiba nodded before remembering something important. Wait, who's the third time traveler? You mentioned some people were dead who I didn't know had died. Who does that leave as possible candidates if there even is a third person? Sakura looked sad at the mention of their fallen comrades. The people who were already dead when I got sent back were Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, Lee, Tenten, Neji, Guy, Kakashi, Sasuke, Sai, Tsunade, and a load of other people. Shit, that leaves hardly anyone. If you add my team to that list, I guess we can assume Naruto would only send someone he trusts, but that leaves a lot of people from all over the elemental nations. Why did Naruto have to be so damn popular? Let's work on the assumption that we are alone. They'll contact us if they exist, since unless Naruto really screwed up they should know about us. Well, what should we do first? We have about 2 years before the Uchiha massacre, so where should we start? Sakura looked thoughtful for a second. The easiest thing to do would be befriending Naruto. We should start off easy, until we can defend ourselves anyway. I feel weak as a puppy right now. All I really have right now is my good sense of smell, but since I was pretty much born with that, it's not saying much. I think I have enough chakra to do that exercise where you get the leaf to stick to your head. You have the advantage. I only originally started training to be a ninja when I started at the academy, and even then my chakra reserves were pretty bad until I was an active genin for a while. I forget sometimes that you're from a civilian family. I mean, in our group everyone had some sort of shinobi background except for you and maybe Lee. How much chakra do you have right now? I can barely feel my chakra. I don't think I'd be able to make the leaf stick to my head even with my perfect control. Sakura groaned, frustrated. We're going to have to fix that. Right now we are pretty helpless, and Akamaru isn't going to be born for a couple of years yet, so it's going to be a while before I can get back to full strength. And I guess until your reserves are bigger you're stuck too. We can still do target practice and practice taijutsu until we have enough chakra to do at least some our old techniques. We just need a place to train that's away from people. Sakura smiled. I've got a place in mind. We just need to sneak away, which I assume you can do already. It's easier when Ma is out on a mission, cause then I only have either my sister or one of my cousins watching me. It should be doable though. Sakura nodded. Let's go now then. Where? I want to show where we can train and look for Naruto and Sasuke. Are we sneaking out because you know my Ma is home and she'll know as soon as we leave? What will she do when she senses we've left? Follow us most likely. Well, we can just look for Naruto and Sasuke today. I'll show you the place we can train at when your mother isn't around. Kiba nodded and gestured towards his window. So are we going to climb out my window then? Yeah, just let me remove these seals and we can go. Kiba wasn't sure how he would react to seeing the chibi versions of his friends, especially Naruto, considering the last time he'd seen him he had been sending him into the past without explaining a damn thing to him. In fact, the very thought of that Naruto made him furious, but only that Naruto because the one before him now was just a lonely 4-year-old who Kiba couldn't possibly be angry at after all. This Naruto hadn't wronged him, and yes, he felt wronged. And to think he'd actually been happy to see Naruto when he'd found him in that crater. If only he knew what Naruto had been planning. But that was evil 16-year-old Naruto, not lonely 4-year-old Naruto, so he was willing to let his need for revenge go for now. After all, beating him up now would only make him feel bad. Sneaking out had been relatively easy. Kiba knew that his mother was trailing them since they were 5, and generally 5-year-olds aren't allowed to wander around unsupervised. Finding Naruto had been pretty easy too. After all, Kiba knew his scent, which had led to their current situation. Kiba and Sakura had found Naruto at the park sitting in a tree, at the very top of the tree in fact, which secretly Kiba found quite impressive considering how small the 4-year-old was, and he hadn't used chakra to get up there. He was brought out of his thoughts by Sakura elbowing him inside, because he hadn't been paying attention to the conversation being had. Huh, what? Sakura scowled at him. We both want to play with Naruto, right Kiba? She elbowed him again, which meant that this wasn't something he had any say in. He looked up at Naruto, who was staring at them, clearly suspicious of their motives, which may not have been completely unfounded since Kiba was planning to kick his ass at some point in the future. Yeah, so why don't you come down from the tree? Naruto, unwilling to come down from the tree, shook his head. Who are you anyway? I'm Sakura and this idiot is Kiba, she said, elbowing Kiba again, who groaned. He was fairly certain he would have a bruise there later. Naruto nodded before his face took on a more quizzical appearance, which if Kiba was anyone else he'd say was adorable. How come you know my name? Sakura answered again, we've heard about you around the village. This wasn't a complete lie since even at the tender age of 4 Naruto's reputation as the demon brat was pretty widespread. Naruto seemed to pale at this. Then why don't you hate me? Sakura tilted her head. Why would we hate you? We don't even know you. Naruto shrugged at this. I don't know, everyone else does. Kiba was silently fuming, though this time it was aimed at the villagers. Well, we don't, so let's play something already. Naruto narrowed his eyes. You're not trying to trick me or yaw? Now Kiba himself had never been bullied, but he knew that Naruto had been, though he wasn't aware that it had affected Naruto this much since when they were older it had always appeared to Kiba that he didn't let the villagers' apparent unwarranted hatred of him get him down. But again, he was comparing this chibi version of his friend to the person he'd grow up to be. When he thought about it, it made sense that he wasn't very trustful of them. After all, he spent his short life being hated by nearly everyone he comes into contact for a reason he doesn't even know. When suddenly 2 kids he's never talked to before want to play with him, he would be suspicious too. However, even though he understood why Naruto was staying in the tree, it didn't mean that he knew how to deal with it. Sure, he'd gotten a whole lot better at dealing with insecure people being on a team with Hinata, but he'd still be inadvertently insensitive at times. So it seems this was a job for Sakura, lest Kiba say the wrong thing as he was prone to do. Sakura sighed. Is it really that impossible that we might want to play with you? Naruto thought on this for a second, but not for long, because thinking things through was never really Naruto's thing. I'll play with you, he said, like he was doing them a favor. The tone for whatever reason set off the urge in Kiba to storm off in a tantrum, which he quickly squashed. He blamed it on this dumb body of his. He'd gotten what he called the tantrum urge a couple of times in the short period he'd been in the past for, mostly for stupid reasons like his family teasing him, and now just because Naruto was being a little rude, which was standard behavior from Naruto. He forced himself to ignore the urge and smile. Let's play then. They had been playing with Naruto for a couple of hours, during which Kiba had been trying to catch Sasuke's scent when suddenly he smelled something that was very close to what he was looking for. He quickly realized that he'd caught a whiff of Itachi. Upon catching his scent, he completely forgot whatever he'd been doing. He was still hardwired to think of Itachi as an enemy, one that should be avoided if at all possible. The fact that he'd apparently been on their side this whole time did little to comfort him, mostly because he had trust issues when came to the Uchiha clan. Ones that he thought were completely justified when you considered all the Uchiha that he'd come across: Sasuke, Itachi, Obito, Madara, all of them had been his enemy. Well, Sasuke and Obito had had a change of heart in the end, but it didn't change the fact that every Uchiha he'd met had been involved with the very organization that caused most of the future problems, the Akatsuki. So when he smelled Itachi, he did the natural thing and hightailed it out of there, dragging a completely bewildered Naruto and annoyed Sakura with him. In the moment it had seemed like the right thing to do. He'd been listening to his instincts, but after thinking about it, he may have overreacted, just a little. Naruto still seemed a little dazed. Kiba had moved faster than he thought. This body capable of using the little chakra he had access to, and little Naruto was not used to that. Sakura on the other hand looked entirely unimpressed. What the hell was that Kiba? Now Kiba was no coward, at least not usually, but that tone of voice from Sakura may have made him flinch just a little bit. Oh well, ya see, he trailed off, unsure of what she wanted to hear. Naruto, who seemed to have come out of his daze, finally perked up. How did you do that? Can ya teach me? Sakura, still annoyed, ignored Naruto. Well, Kiba? And this time Kiba did flinch because damn it, 5 years old or not, Sakura was scary when she wanted to be. I smelled something dangerous. Is that a question? No? I mean no. Naruto, not one to sit silent, asked the expected question, what was dangerous? Now this was something he'd have to answer carefully. If he told the truth he'd be in trouble, but he'd probably be in more trouble if he lied. Well, about that, I was wrong. Naruto looked at him curious. Wrong how? It wasn't really dangerous, I just thought it was dangerous for a second. So you ran really fast for nothing? Right. Sakura had observed this exchange silently before smiling, which just served to unnerve Kiba more, mostly because the smile seemed to be saying, we're discussing this later. Naruto was of course oblivious to this threat to Kiba's person. So how'd you run that fast? Kiba, who was still staring warily at Sakura, was only half listening to Naruto. I just used chakra. What's chakra? Now that got both Kiba and Sakura's attention. They both said in unison, you don't know what chakra is. Naruto scowled, no, clearly annoyed at their incredulousness. Kiba was the less understanding of the two. He'd grown up in a clan and therefore had been told what chakra was at a very early age. As soon as he could really speak, he'd been told what it was and how to channel it. The idea that the person who'd become one of, if not the strongest ninja in the elemental nations, didn't know what chakra was kind of ridiculous. Of course he was forgetting again that said friend was currently 4. Don't you want to be a ninja? Yeah, I've gotta be a ninja because I'm going to be Hokage one day. And there was the Naruto he knew. He was about to retort when Sakura elbowed him hard in the stomach. Again, effectively silencing him. Sakura understood Naruto better than Kiba did. She'd been his teammate and his best friend. She knew very well how limited Naruto's knowledge was. Even after Team 7 had been formed, both her and Kakashi had had to explain a lot of things to him. He had been the dead last for a reason. Secretly she suspected that before Iruka-sensei started teaching them, the teachers hadn't bothered trying to teach Naruto, because she knew Naruto wasn't as stupid as he appeared to be. Sometimes he was the smartest person she knew. Sometimes he was also the dumbest. Mostly she just wondered how their teachers hadn't seen the potential in Naruto. Obviously Iruka had, Jiraiya definitely had, and even Kakashi had seen it eventually. The idea that the academy teachers almost allowed this almost limitless potential to go to waste made her sick, so she promised herself that she would help Naruto unlock that potential a little earlier. She wouldn't allow him to be the dead last again, at least. Chakra is a mixture of physical energy which is in our body and spiritual energy which is in our mind. Ninja use it to perform even the most basic of techniques. Naruto appeared to be genuinely interested. How do you use it? She thought about how best to explain it. You need to learn how to manipulate your chakra. You were asking how Kiba ran so fast earlier. He was channeling chakra into his legs. Naruto seemed confused by this. I don't get it. Kiba decided to try playing at being a sensei. Have you ever felt like an energy inside you? Not sure. You gotta concentrate and try to feel for it inside. It's hard to explain, I'm no sensei. But once you can feel your chakra, it's not too hard. I can't really tell what it'll feel like either, since everyone's chakra is different. He also knew full well that Naruto's chakra was especially different. Naruto started trying to concentrate, but really it just made him look kind of constipated. After a few seconds of this he threw his hands up in exasperation. It's not working. Kiba groaned, shaking his head. You gotta work on your patience, dude. You only tried for like a second. Sakura stepped forward. You know Naruto, you could train with us if you want to? Naruto looked pretty eager. Kiba not so much. If they trained with Naruto, it would slow down their progress in a big way, and he was planning on being back to full strength before his age hit double digits. Naruto looked at her all wide-eyed and adorable. Really, that'd be awesome. Kiba decided to keep his mouth shut, mostly because Sakura probably had a plan of some sort and he was already in enough trouble with her, so he wasn't going to mess it up. Good, we'll come find you tomorrow then. You should try to work on concentrating till then. Are you leaving now? Naruto said sadly. Kiba and I need to head back, so we'll see you tomorrow? Naruto beamed at them. Definitely. As they said goodbye to Naruto, Kiba checked that his mother was still following them. She had briefly lost them when he'd had his Itachi freak out, but had caught up with them again now. She was maintaining her distance outside of hearing range. As he was thinking all this, Kiba and Sakura had started to walk back to the Inuzuka compound. She seemed to be fine with silence, which Kiba was grateful for, though of course that wouldn't last. Sakura elbowed him once again in the same spot. He was certain he would have a bruise tomorrow, so what the hell was that earlier? Well, you see, I caught the scent of someone who I thought was dangerous before I remembered that they weren't. Sakura narrowed her eyes before whispering, it was Itachi, right? Kiba nodded. I'm sorry, my instincts kinda took over. I'll let you off just this once since it's our first day doing this, but don't think I'll go easy on you next time. You'll blow our cover if you're not careful. I know, I'm just not used to being in this time again, and seeing Naruto like that was strange. Speaking of Naruto, why did you say he could train with us? Won't he slow us down? Plus he has those Anbu guards following him around. We don't have to just train with him, we can train on our too. I just don't want to let him be the dead last again. We both know what he's capable of. Besides, the sooner he can get strong again the better for us, right? It's going to be years before he's even close to what he was before. He didn't even know what chakra was. It's not his fault no one bothered to explain it to him. Doesn't the Hokage watch over him? The Hokage is a busy man, he doesn't have time to always look out for one orphan. But he's not just any orphan, he's the Yondaime's son, not to mention his burden. You don't need to tell me that. Well, I can't go and complain to the Sandaime, can I? I'm not even supposed to know any of this. Exactly, so all we can do right now is try and help Naruto out. Kiba groaned quietly. Yeah, you know I didn't get a hint of Sasuke's scent today, right? It doesn't matter, we can look again tomorrow, we still have plenty of time. I guess you're right. He looked up and noticed they were approaching the compound. Looks like we're here anyway. As they were heading in through his window again, he whispered, play dumb about my ma following this around, okay? She might let go the fact that we snuck out if she's in benevolent mood. I didn't know you knew such a big word, Kiba. Kiba spluttered indignantly, I'm not stupid, you know. Sakura snickered to herself, if you say so. Kiba did not like being teased, which was tough luck for him because teasing him was his family's favorite pastime. And that was what Hana had been doing ever since she'd heard about Kiba and Sakura's excursion from their mother. She kept going on and on about how it was a playdate. He knew she was only doing it to get a reaction out of him, but Kiba couldn't help himself. He'd been suppressing his tantrum urges all day, so he decided to let it all out, which his door had suffered for. This had of course led to him being grounded in his current problem. Should he sneak out and possibly be caught and grounded for longer, or stay inside and waste a day and possibly face Sakura's ire? So really it came down to whose wrath he was more afraid, Sakura's or his mother's, and right now that was still his mother. Maybe once Sakura had her super strength back he'd be more wary, but right now he felt better facing her than his mother. So for today he was confined to the compound with nothing productive to do. He was sure Sakura would come looking for him at some point, so he'd need a decent excuse before then. Luckily Hana inadvertently provided him with one when she told him why their mother was out. Ma's gone to a clan head meeting, so she left me in charge until she gets back. I get to make sure you don't leave this compound. Kiba pouted. Why don't you have the academy today? It's not on today. Kiba frowned at his misfortune before brightening up. What time will she be back? Hana narrowed her eyes at him, suspicious. In a couple of hours, depends if there are any problems or not. What are you planning, Kiba? Nothing. It offends me that you think I am, he said sarcastically. Yeah right, just so long whatever you're planning doesn't involve you causing trouble, I don't care. Kiba now could do something productive with his time by finding out about the Uchiha clan from his mother. It had been part of the plan, so it was a perfect excuse for Sakura, which may mean he wouldn't have to tell her about his brief lapse in sanity when he'd thrown his tantrum. The only issue now was how he could get the information he was after without seeming too suspicious, since never in Kiba's whole life had he shown even a vague interest in politics. Especially at this age, he'd been more interested in playing and annoying Hana and her dogs. His interest in clan politics hadn't really changed, but they needed more information if they were going to change the future, and he was in a good position to get that. About an hour later, Sakura showed up with Naruto in tow. The fact that Naruto was there concerned him a little. He wasn't sure of his clan's attitude towards the Jinchuriki. His mother had never told him to stay away from the boy like some parents had, which may be a good sign. On top of that, she hadn't commented on him hanging out with Naruto the previous day. But with his sister he had no clue. Hana was old enough to remember the Kyuubi attack and therefore probably knew about Naruto's status. Just because his mother was indifferent to Naruto didn't mean his sister would be. Unluckily for him, it seemed he was going to find out what Hana thought because she got to the door first. He could see her visibly stiffen when she opened the door, though because he couldn't see her face he didn't know whether it was out of surprise or fear. "Hello Sakura, you here to see my delinquent little brother?" She turned to face Naruto. "And who is this?" Naruto seemed apprehensive. "I'm Naruto, are you Kiba's sister?" "Yes, Kiba is my bratty little brother, name's Hana. Are you a friend of his?" Naruto seemed to perk up at Hana's seeming acceptance of him. "Yep." Both Sakura and Kiba had been silently watching this exchange, Sakura with interest and Kiba with worry. Sakura chose to speak. "Is Kiba in?" Hana, who had visibly relaxed, grinned at them. "Yes, but he's been grounded." Sakura narrowed her eyes. "Why was he grounded?" Hana grinned even more. "Well." She was interrupted by Kiba, who had decided now was a good time to make his presence known. "Hey Sakura, Naruto. What are you doing here?" He shouted this to drown out his sister. However, this just served to make Sakura more suspicious. "I'm sorry Hana, I didn't catch that. My little brother threw a tantrum and broke his door." Naruto looked impressed. "How'd he break his door?" Hana narrowed her eyes at the statement. "That is a good question, Naruto. One that Kiba refuses to answer truthfully." They all turned their attention to Kiba, who reddened at the sudden attention. "I told you already, I kicked it when I was angry. That door was sturdy. You couldn't possibly have just kicked it randomly and broken it unless you infused your chakra, which you can't do yet." Kiba looked sheepish, making Hana narrow her eyes again. "When did you learn to infuse your chakra, Kiba? Ma didn't teach you?" He looked to Sakura for help. "Kiba and I found a scroll and we worked it out from there," Sakura said, the first thing that came into her head. "So you're saying that my little brother willingly read something and on top of that learned something from it without any sort of adult help?" Sakura and Kiba both nodded dumbly. "I wasn't going to say anything, but this has been bugging me for the last few days. You guys are hiding something. Ever since Kiba got lost in the woods he's been acting strange, and I know you're in on it too, Sakura. You two are up to something." It was silent apart from Naruto giggling about Kiba's trip into the woods. Kiba was speechless. He knew that his sister was smart and that she was probably the person who knew him best, but he didn't think that she would have spoken up about it this soon. It had only been 3 days, and he hadn't had the time to think of how he would tell her that now her little brother was mentally older than her. He had planned to tell her eventually. "I can explain everything in a little while. I need to think about how I can explain it right." Hana looked at her brother for a few seconds before appearing to come to a decision. "Okay, I'll wait for you to decide how to tell me." Sakura was silently freaking out. Hana. I know Kiba's grounded, but I just need to talk to him for a second in private. Make it quick." She turned quickly to Naruto. "You wait here." Naruto nodded obediently. Sakura rushed forward and grabbed Kiba's arm and dragging him out of earshot of Naruto and Hana. "I can explain. Are you really going to tell your sister the truth?" "Well yeah, she'll think we're crazy." "Well, we are a little. I think being 5 again is making me mentally regress." "Is that why you had a tantrum?" "Yeah, I was hoping that you wouldn't find out about that." "How would I not find out since now you're useless for the day?" "Actually, today isn't a lost cause for me. I have a plan." Sakura raised her eyebrow. "Which is?" "I can ask my ma about the Uchiha. The clan heads are meeting today." "You just got lucky that a clan meeting happened to be on the day that you threw a tantrum." Yeah," he said nervously. Sakura smiled. "I know I told you to try and act your age, but I think you're taking it a little too seriously," she laughing. Kiba blushed. Sakura put her hands up. "I'm just teasing you." "I know. Okay, so today you're going to get our information on the Uchiha and tell Hana the truth, which is a terrible idea. I always planned on telling her. This is just a little sooner than I thought. What are you going to do today? I am going to try and teach Naruto how to infuse his chakra, and while he tries that I'm going to try out some chakra control exercises. She poked him in the chest, telling her better go well or she could wreck everything. I know, but I can't lie, she'll know if I lie, and I think I can get her to believe me. I guess I'll just have to trust your judgment then. I guess I'll see you tomorrow. Probably, unless something goes horribly wrong. Sakura scowled at him. Which it won't. I bet Hana will even be willing to help us. Seriously, it better go well. Sakura and Kiba headed back towards the door where Hana and Naruto were seemingly having a conversation about ramen, or rather Naruto was talking about ramen and Hana was vaguely listening. She perked up seeing Kiba and Sakura return. You guys finish your talk? They both nodded. Well, I guess we'll be seeing you two soon, but right now my little brother and I need to talk. Sakura and a confused Naruto said their goodbyes and left the train. Once the door was shut, Hana turned to Kiba. Are you ready to explain? As ready as I'll ever be, Kiba said resignedly. The siblings moved to Hana's room since her room still had a fully intact door. Kiba fished a privacy seal out of his pocket and placed it on her door, while Hana looked on curiously. What are you doing? Putting a privacy seal on the door. I don't want your dogs or Ma or any of our cousins to hear this. It's gonna be hard enough to explain this to you. Where did you get that from? Sakura made them for me. And how does a 5-year-old know how to make seals? All will become clear when I explain. Then get to explaining. Okay, promise me you'll hear me out. I promise. Kiba took a deep breath. This is going to sound strange, but I'm not exactly the Kiba that you know. Mentally I'm 16 because my friend Naruto sent me and Sakura 11 years into the past so we could change the future. And I know this sounds crazy, but I swear I'm telling the truth and you can ask me anything you want. Hana looked at Kiba blankly. Whatever I was expecting, it definitely wasn't that. Are you kidding? Because you can't expect me to believe that, can you? I'm being very serious. What can I do to prove it to you? Hana's eyes widened. Oh my god, you're being serious. I know when you're lying. How is this possible? Kiba breathed a sigh of relief since Hana seemed to be giving him the benefit of the doubt for now. You know what Naruto is, right? Hana nodded. In the future there was a war, and during that war I'm not entirely sure of the circumstances, but somehow Naruto got more than one Biju sealed into him and they gave Naruto the ability to send people back in time. He didn't explain how, but he did something to me and I ended up here. He had more than just the Kyuubi inside of him? Yeah, why did he choose you to send back? I was kinda the only one around at the time. Where was everyone else? Well, most of them were dead. Because of this war you mentioned. That's right. Was I? Do you really want to know that? No, I guess not. Do you believe me? Not really, but if I think about it, it makes a weird kind of sense. I've heard of space-time jutsu being done before, so theoretically time travel could be possible. And your imagination isn't good enough to come up with something this ridiculous. So you believe me? Not completely, but you have to understand that you sound completely insane. I just need you to give me some time to take in what you've told me. That seems fair. While you're taking it in, can you help us? That depends on what you need. I need some information from Ma about the Uchiha clan. Why the Uchiha clan? Something big with the Uchiha is going to happen in about 2 years and we need to confirm some stuff about why it happens. What's going to happen? I don't know if I should tell you. It's really bad. You're right, it'll be better if you don't. So are you willing to help us out? Sure, but I want to hear more about this later. Kiba smiled widely. Thank you for believing me. Oh, and don't tell anyone. I don't think anyone would believe me anyway. I'm not sure I believe it myself. Kiba hugged Hana, which was very unusual for him. You don't know how good it feels to have more than just Sakura knowing the truth. And thank you for helping us. You know you don't have to. What are big sisters for, huh? Though I guess you're technically older than me now. I don't really feel 16. I think coming to the past messed with my head. That why you had a tantrum and broke your door? Yeah, I'm not used to having this body again. Hana nodded solemnly before suddenly laughing. You're going to have to go through puberty again. Kiba paled at that. Oh man. Hana laughed at his expression before standing up to leave the room. Ma should be home soon, so we should come up with a way to ask her for the information without seeming too suspicious. What exactly do you want to know? Kiba thought about it for a minute. We just need to confirm that the Uchiha don't have a good relationship with the other clans. I'm pretty sure that the Uchiha keep to themselves for the most part. But I guess there's no harm confirming it. Sume Inuzuka arrived back about an hour later to find her 2 children talking rather amicably with each other. It was rare for the siblings to not be arguing about something, They seem to be plotting something. What are you pups up to? Hana and Kiba turned to their mother, obviously trying to look as innocent as possible. Hana was the one who spoke. We aren't up to anything, Ma. We were just waiting for you to come back. How was the meeting? Sume grew more suspicious. Long since when are you interested in clan politics? Kiba was curious. Sume's eyes moved to her son. And why are you interested? Kiba looked faintly embarrassed. I realized that I don't really know anything about the other clans in the village and I don't want to seem stupid when I go to the academy. So you want to show off? No. Kiba's tone amused Sume greatly. I guess you were going to have to know these things eventually, though this is a little earlier than I thought. What exactly do you want to know, pup? During the conversation he'd gotten the distinct impression that his mother wasn't overly fond of most of the other clans. In fact, outside of the Akamichi, Nara and Yamanaka clans, they were either labeled creepy, Shibi Abarame, or stuck up, Fugaku Uchiha and Hiyashi Hyuga. He'd also gotten confirmation that the Uchiha were isolated, though his mother hadn't directly said it. His mother wasn't exactly politically correct about it, though the Inuzukas had never been very politically correct. He was certain that his mother had noticed his change in attitude, but despite the fact that she was his mother, she didn't know him nearly as well as Hana did, and because of that probably wouldn't notice some of the more subtle changes in his personality. And even if she did, she'd probably chalk it up to him growing up or something. Having Hana in on this felt like having a great weight lifted off his shoulders. There was no one he trusted more in the world, and despite only being 11, she was much smarter than him. She would be a genin in a matter of months, which meant that shortly they'd have an active ninja on their side. Things were going pretty well for them, so why did he feel like something bad was on the horizon? Having Hana in on the time travel had come with its positives and its negatives. The good being that this burden that he'd thought would drive him insane in time was now spread between more than just himself and Sakura. Hana was helpful to have on side since it meant that their team consisted of more than just two 5-year-olds. Now they had a soon-to-be ninja who had access to resources that would have been out of their reach without her. The bad side was that for the whole week that she'd known, she hadn't gone a day without pestering him with questions about the future, most of which he was reluctant to answer. Today had been no exception, as she'd asked about the war and its outcome before leaving for the academy that day. He'd been intentionally vague when answering, which had annoyed her, leading to an arguing and Kiba's current sour mood. The fact that progress in their training had been slow and the search for Sasuke had so far been fruitless didn't help his mood either. He knew that Sasuke would probably be on the Uchiha compound, but he refused to go here, partly because of his Uchiha trust issues but mostly because he knew they wouldn't be welcome there. The plan for today was to look for Sasuke again and continue training with Naruto, whose progress was slow. Teaching Naruto made Kiba want to pull his hair out. He had a newfound respect for Iruka-sensei's patience, because though Naruto was eager to learn, his chakra control was the worst that Kiba had seen. He'd known that Naruto's chakra control wasn't good, but not to this extent. Even at 4, he has a huge amount of chakra, which meant whenever he tried to use it he used way too much and something inevitably is destroyed. Thankfully only inanimate objects had been victims so far. He headed out to clearing they'd claimed as their training ground when he caught the scent of the person they had been searching for, along with the scent of a person that despite his best efforts still scared him. Sasuke and Itachi seemed to be heading in the same direction as him, so Kiba decided he'd leave them alone until he could find Sakura. He didn't fancy facing Itachi on his own. Once he'd gotten pretty close to the clearing where Sakura and possibly Naruto would be waiting, he realized that the Uchiha were still heading in the exact same direction as him, meaning that for some reason they were going to the clearing. This left him with two options: he could run on ahead and warn his friends who exactly was coming, or he could just hang back and let Sakura handle the Uchiha brothers. The latter option was far more appealing to the young Inuzuka, and so he slowed his pace, allowing the Uchiha a more sizable lead. He snuck up to the edge of the clearing to listen in on the conversation. It looked like Sakura had heard them coming, as she looked completely unsurprised by the Uchiha brothers' arrival. In contrast, Naruto seemed angry and surprised. "What are you doing here?" he asked rudely. "I could ask you the same thing," Sasuke replied petulantly. "You're interrupting our training. This isn't your training spot." This outraged Naruto. "Yes it is." This in turn outraged Sasuke. "No it isn't. I don't see your name on it." "I don't see your name either." At this, Naruto smiled proudly, pointing at a tree near Kiba. "It says my name right there." Everyone, including Itachi, who up to this point had been watching the argument silently, and Sakura, who had been trying to think of ways to defuse the situation, looked at the tree which did indeed have Naruto crudely carved into it. When did he do that? Kiba wondered to himself as Naruto and Sasuke's argument grew louder as Sasuke yelled something about it not counting. It was rather amusing to watch and improved his mood greatly. He looked for Sakura only to find that she had somehow snuck up on him and did not look happy. "Having fun there, Kiba?" she asked deceptively sweetly. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know what I can say to make this look better, it's exactly what it looks like." Sakura seemed surprised by his honesty, which gave him enough time to get into the clearing where there would be witnesses. Kiba's arrival distracted Naruto from his argument with Sasuke. He smiled brightly at Kiba. "Hey Kiba." Sasuke, not liking being ignored, whirled around to scowl at Kiba, who then noticed that everyone including Itachi were staring at him, and both Sasuke's and Sakura's stares were hostile. He had no idea what to say. Seeing Sasuke act so childish was very jarring, much more than it had been when he'd seen Naruto. With Naruto it hadn't been as weird because the Naruto he'd known had retained some of his innocence and childishness. He had never entirely grown up, but with Sasuke for most of the time Kiba had known him there'd been something dark just beneath the surface. He'd never seen him act like a kid and very rarely seen him smile. When Sasuke had defected to Orochimaru he hadn't been all that shocked by the news. He'd always known there was something different about him. But this child in front of him had none of that. He looked like a normal kid, which he was. This Sasuke hadn't seen his entire family slaughtered by his big brother. He was just a normal bratty kid right now, and it was very disconcerting. He knew he must have a really weird look on his face because Sasuke had dropped his scowl and now just looked confused. Itachi had moved closer too and was about to touch his shoulder. He flinched away and Itachi withdrew his hand, frowning slightly. Despite the fact that he knew Itachi posed no threat to him, he was still afraid. Even though this 11-year-old Itachi hadn't done anything yet, he knew that in 2 short years he'd kill his entire clan. Whether it was to protect the village or not didn't really matter to Kiba. It still felt wrong to be near him. He knew he'd have to get better at hiding his discomfort. Sakura was the one who broke the uncomfortable silence. "You know we could share the clearing." Naruto opened his mouth to protest before Sakura turned her gaze to him. "Right, Naruto?" Naruto wisely decided to just nod in agreement. It was this moment that Itachi finally chose to speak, which made Kiba jump more than he'd cared to admit. "That'll be fine, won't it, Sasuke?" Sasuke looked put out. "But I wanted to train with just you." Itachi smiled at his little brother. "We can still train, they'll just be in the clearing too." Sasuke didn't look happy but seemed to accept it before turning to the trio. "Who are you three anyway?" "I'm Kiba Inuzuka." He saw Sasuke's eyes narrow at the mention of his clan, which made him want to stick his tongue out at the boy. But he thought it wiser not to antagonize him further. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the future Hokage." Naruto practically yelled. Itachi slightly lifted an eyebrow at the statement, which was the most expression from the boy Kiba had seen. Sasuke seemed unsure how to respond. Ignoring Naruto's outburst, Sakura stepped forward. "Sakura Haruno, and who are you? I mean, you're obviously Uchiha, but which ones?" Itachi opened his mouth to speak, but Sasuke beat him to it. "I'm Sasuke and this is my big brother Itachi. He's already a Chunin." Kiba was unimpressed by the boast, though he was pretty sure he wasn't the one Sasuke had been trying to impress. He was proven right when he saw Sasuke smirk at Naruto, who was staring starry-eyed in Itachi's direction. He knew what Itachi was in for, and after Naruto's interrogation of Itachi they actually started to train. Naruto began to accidentally fry leaves and Kiba and Sakura started their respective exercises. The Uchiha brothers appeared to be doing something with kunai, though seemed to want to spar. He noticed Itachi watching them occasionally and Naruto gave him some odd looks. With Itachi he knew it was because he could sense he was uncomfortable around and was trying to figure out why, but with Naruto it was more mysterious. They carried on like this for a few hours until Sasuke decided to talk to them. Having given up on trying to spar his brother, he approached Naruto, who was still trying to stick a leaf to his head without burning it. "What are you trying to do?" "Trying to stick the leaf to my head, right?" "What do ya mean, right?" "Sakura says I use too much chakra." Both of the Uchiha brothers' eyes lit up with interest. Sasuke's interest was because he was at the age where he was learning how to mold his chakra. So someone his own age clearly having a lot of knowledge about it was very intriguing. Itachi's interest was because a 5-year-old from a civilian family being knowledgeable about chakra is unusual. Both boys turned their gaze to Sakura, who looked uncomfortable. "He is, isn't he?" she said defensively. Itachi nodded slightly. I'm just curious about where you learned about chakra, your parents? No, Kiba and I taught ourselves and we're teaching Naruto. Can you teach me? Sasuke yelled excitedly. Kiba saw a tiny flicker of hurt appear in Itachi's eyes, though it was gone so fast he may have imagined it. Sasuke seemed to notice it too because he added on, when Itachi's busy I mean. Naruto seemed put out by Sasuke's request, but they're already teaching me. We can teach you both, Kiba cut in before another argument could start. Sakura looked at him surprised. Honestly, he'd surprised himself because having Sasuke train with them would mean they'd probably be seeing a lot more of Itachi, who he'd honestly prefer to avoid. Sasuke, seemingly happy with the arrangement, turned to his brother. Do you think father would be okay with them teaching me? What he doesn't know won't hurt him. The irony of that statement did not go unnoticed by Kiba and Sakura. Sasuke obviously trusted his brother's judgment since the statement placated his worries. When do you train? The explanation on training was uneventful, though Kiba could feel Itachi's eyes on him. It was an incredibly unnerving feeling. To make matters worse, Naruto had started giving him the same strange looks he'd been giving him earlier. The Uchiha brothers left after they'd confirmed the time and place. Once they were out of sight, Naruto turned to Kiba looking confused. Why are you scared of them? Maybe Naruto was more observant than Kiba gave him credit for. I'm not scared of them. Well, not Sasuke anyway. Then why are you scared of Itachi? I guess he's a bit weird but not scary. Kiba racked his mind for an explanation but came up blank. Sakura came to his rescue. Kiba's clan isn't really friendly towards the Uchiha, so they make him a little uncomfortable. Really? Yeah. Naruto didn't look entirely convinced but was content to drop it for now, of which Kiba was grateful for. There was an awkward silence which was broken by the arrival of Hana. Hey, you guys ready to leave? Naruto had taken a shine to Hana and was the first to respond. We're ready, but tomorrow we're going to train with Sasuke too. Sasuke? As in Sasuke Uchiha? They all nodded. Hana looked at Kiba knowingly. Well then let's go home. They took Naruto home first to give them time to discuss plans. So was training in that clearing on purpose or a happy accident? Happy accident, Sakura smiled. Plan-wise this is a big step forward. What's the next step? Befriend Sasuke and hopefully gain Itachi's trust. He'd be helpful to have as an ally. And you're sure you can't tell me why the Uchiha are so important? Kiba frowned. The less you know the better, we'll only tell you what's necessary. Hana frowned, matching her little brother. I don't seem to need to know much. Sakura, not liking to see the Inuzuka siblings in such foul moods, tried to brighten them up. Once you become a ninja we can let you in on more, because then there will be more you can do to help. Hana brightened a little. That'll be better because right now I feel like I don't know anything, except that there's a war coming and that something is going to happen with the Uchiha in the next couple of years. Other than that I'm blind. Kiba frowned more. I know you think you want to know what's going to happen in the future, but you really don't. Some of it is pretty terrible. He thought about the village being destroyed by pain and that short bloody war. Sakura, seeing Kiba's obvious distress, put a hand on his shoulder. We're not going to let those things happen again. Kiba nodded, trying and failing to smile. He still had a weird feeling that something bad was coming. 6 months had passed since they'd been sent into the past, and though they'd accomplished quite a bit in the first few weeks, the ensuing months hadn't been nearly as productive. The only things of note that had taken place included Hana's graduation, Naruto's 5th birthday, and Kiba getting a little more used to Itachi. Other than that, they'd been unsuccessful in their endeavors. Getting closer to the Uchiha had been a no-go. The brothers wanted to keep their interactions a secret. Well, Itachi hadn't actually said to keep it secret. He didn't say much of anything to them, but Sasuke had made it pretty clear. They'd hit somewhat of a dead end, leaving only their training, which had been progressing nicely. Though Kiba was limited in what he could do without Akamaru, he could still teach Hana some of the clan techniques, though she'd been taught some by their mother once she'd become a genin anyway. Sakura had started teaching her some medical jutsu basics too. Naruto and Sasuke's progress had been slower, but they had improved nonetheless. They pestered Kiba for spars a lot, which were always denied. Kiba usually sparred with Sakura or Hana when Naruto and Sasuke weren't around. Itachi was still suspicious. He knew something was off about them, but he'd failed to come up with any answers, though they were considering telling him the truth soon anyway if their trouble connecting with the Uchiha continued. Though Kiba was pretty against the idea since it had plenty of potential to backfire, persuading Itachi. A stranger to them is very different to persuading someone you've known your whole life, Hana. Today was shaping up to be pretty standard, or at least that's what Kiba thought. He had the feeling that he'd forgotten something, but he brushed the feeling aside as being unimportant. Sakura was waiting in the clearing like always. What was different though was the absence of Naruto and Sasuke. Why are you the only one here? Sakura frowned. Did you forget what's happening today? Kiba stared at Sakura blankly. Sakura groaned. The case cage is coming to the village today to meet with the Hokage. And why are we interested? Hana said that apparently he's bringing his kids. Were you not listening? Not really. He looked sheepish before registering what she'd said. Wait, all of his kids? Isn't Gaara a little dangerous? I don't think he was completely crazy at this age. I can't be certain though. Naruto was closer to him than I was. Kiba nodded. Are we going to try and make contact? If there's an opportunity to, I think it'd be dumb not to at least try. I guess there's no harm in observation. They headed to the road leading to the Hokage's tower, choosing to wait on a rooftop. They tried to be inconspicuous about it, but he was pretty certain that some of the Anbu noticed. Not that that was anything new. The Anbu had seen a lot of what they could do already since they watched Naruto train with them. They had a good view from the rooftop, much better than what they would have had they stayed in the crowd below who had gathered to watch the case cage's arrival. Foreign ninja were common in the village, but cage visits were pretty rare. Mostly because Konoha wasn't exactly friendly with the other big villages other than Suna, and that relationship was tenuous at best. The case cage and his procession were just arriving. Kiba searched the group for the trio they were interested in, and his eyes landed on the three small children near the case cage who he assumed were a very young Temari, Kankuro and Gaara. Is that them? Kiba pointed in the trio's general direction. Sakura looked at where Kiba was pointing before nodding. I think so. So we've found them. Now we just have to find a way to contact them without causing an international incident, if we can help it. You make it sound so easy, Sakura said sarcastically. I'm trying to be optimistic. It doesn't suit you. Kiba frowned. I'll have you know that before all this time travel shit I was a pretty optimistic guy. I guess that's true. I mean, you still thought you had a shot at being Hokage. Hey, I had as much of a shot as anyone. Sakura stared at him nonplussed. Really? Yes. I was wrong. That's not being an optimist, it's being delusional. Kiba scowled and looked down at the crowd again. So how are we going to go about this? Sakura raised her eyebrows at the sudden subject change. We'll just have to wait and see if we get an opening. It's not the end of the world if we can't contact them. They watched the procession make its way into the Hokage's tower. So what now? Sakura shrugged. We wait, I guess. We should get off this rooftop then. We don't want to draw too much attention to ourselves. I mean, the ninja around have already noticed. We don't want the civilians noticing too. They got down from the rooftops, drawing as little attention as they could, though Kiba was certain that their rooftop excursion would probably cause issues later. He put the thought to the back of his mind for now. So what, are we just going to hang around until they come out of the building again? I guess what else can we do? Luckily for them, they didn't have too long to wait before the trio of siblings exited the building, accompanied by a sand ninja that Kiba vaguely recognized as the siblings' future sensei and a couple of unseen Anbu that weren't really hiding their presence all that well. He nudged Sakura with his elbow. What now? Follow them from a distance. You know their sense, right? Yeah, I can track them easily enough. Good, so we don't even need to keep them in sight. Kiba looked at the sand siblings. Temari and Kankuro seemed to be acting like normal kids. Gaara, however, was not. He had a blank look on his face. It was a little creepy. He thought back to how Gaara had been when he'd first encountered him, how he'd crushed people without batting an eye, and shuddered. Sakura looked at him concerned. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm just worried that Gaara is as crazy as when we first met him. Sakura looked at the siblings who'd started to move further down the street with Gaara lagging behind a little. He might be, but I doubt that the case cage would have allowed him to come here if he was completely unstable, and even if he is a little off, we know he's not unreachable. Wasn't Naruto the one who reached him before? Yeah, when they were fighting during the invasion. Well, did you hear what Naruto said to him? Sakura looked a little embarrassed. Well, no, I was unconscious. Kiba stared at her blankly. Hey, he was way stronger than me, especially back then. You saw me fight Ino, right? She said defensively. Kiba laughed. Oh yeah, you sucked back then, didn't you? Sakura swung at him, which he dodged. Seriously though, if you'd have fought anyone else they would have kicked your ass. Sakura didn't refute his statement, but she did kick in the shin, which he hadn't been expecting, and thus failed to dodge. Ow! He whined before shrugging. I guess I deserved that even if it's true. I'm not saying that you wouldn't kick butt now. Damn straight. She laughed a little before stiffening. We appear to have attracted some attention. Kiba looked towards where she was looking and sure enough Gaara, who had been lagging behind his siblings anyway, had now stopped completely and was staring right at them with that blank look of his. Now Kiba knew that right now Gaara was only 5 years old, but it didn't mean he was harmless. He was a Jinchuriki and he couldn't help but think of the Chunin exams where he'd seen Gaara crush a Genin team like it was nothing. He knew that Naruto had helped Gaara return to sanity, but even then he'd never felt entirely comfortable around him, not that he'd been that close to the guy anyway. Gaara was Naruto's friend, not his. Not that he didn't have lots of respect for the guy, he just couldn't completely forget seeing those Genin being crushed into a bloody mush. Gaara was still staring at them and completely ignoring the calls of his siblings who seemed to be heading for Ichiraku Ramen. Gaara, keeping the blank look on his face, gestured towards the pair to follow. Did he just tell us to follow him? Sakura frowned. He did, it's almost like he. She trailed off, obviously thinking. Kiba frowned. Why would Gaara, who was, as far as he knew, a stranger to them, gesture to two random kids he didn't know to follow him unless he was? Sakura seemed to have come to a conclusion. You don't think he's like us, do you? Kiba frowned. I thought there wasn't a third person. It's been 6 months with no sign of anyone else. Well, Gaara would have been in Suna this whole time, so getting a message to us would be difficult. Logically it made sense Gaara wouldn't have been able to contact them from Suna, and it had been Naruto who'd been choosing the people to send back, and from what Kiba could tell they'd been pretty close. I guess there's only one way to find out. We do what he want. What's the worst that could happen? Sakura groaned. Don't say that. Gaara was following his siblings again, obviously expecting Kiba and Sakura to follow him, which they were, though they were being cautious about it at Sakura's behest. Kiba was more in favor of just going for it and worrying about the consequences later, though Sakura reminding him of Gaara's possible psychotic tendencies tempered his bravado. Maybe we shouldn't get too close. I mean, Gaara was a psychotic mass murderer. What if he's trying to get us close so he can crush us? Kiba frowned but slowed down a little. Aren't you supposed to be the smart, logical one in this team? Do you really think he's luring us so he can murder us while eating ramen? No, we need to go about this carefully, not your usual jump in headfirst without thinking. That always seemed to work for Naruto. Naruto is different. Yeah, they continued to follow Gaara until the siblings stopped at Ichiraku. What should we do now? I don't have money for ramen. Sakura rolled her eyes. I'll pay for you just this once. Kiba grinned widely. Thanks Sakura, you're the best. Sakura scowled. Don't patronize me. You don't sound like you're 5. Sakura narrowed her eyes at that. Sometimes you're a little too convincing. Kiba grimaced. Let's sit down already. Tucci and Ayame looked a little nervous, but considering how important the current patrons were and the number of Enbu watching the little ramen stand, it was understandable. The smile Ayame gave them looked a little strained. Hey guys. No Naruto today? Kiba shook his head. Just us. You don't usually help out on weekdays. School is closed today, and as you can see business is booming. You two getting your usual. Sakura and Kiba both nodded, as Ayame went to relay their order to her stressed out father. While Sakura was wondering how they should initiate contact with Gaara, Kiba had already decided to go with his usual method, turning to Gaara, who was a few stalls down from them. You came here with the cage, right? Sakura face palmed at his bluntness. While the Sand group sans Gaara eyed them suspiciously, Kankuro spoke up first. How did you know? Saw you in the procession earlier. So you're stalking us? Kiba was outraged by the statement despite it technically being correct. What, no? You just chose to eat at the place that we always eat at, he said, gesturing to Sakura. Kankuro looked unconvinced, but before he could say anything Tamari did. Who are you? I'm Kiba and this is. I'm Sakura. Sakura interrupted. I'm Tamari and these are my brothers Kankuro and Gaara. Apparently the Junin escorting them didn't warrant an introduction. Sakura smiled pleasantly. Nice to meet you. The conversation carried on from there, with them not learning anything significant, other than the fact that the sibling were there at Gaara's insistence. This seemed to support the idea that Gaara was like them, but Gaara himself hadn't actually said anything or given any sign outside of his initial gesture to them that he knew them. In fact, the whole endeavor had felt like a waste of time until Kiba realized there was something in his pocket. The pair had been walking back to their clearing a little put out by their failure, when Kiba randomly stuck his hands in his pockets. Sakura. What? She said, continuing to walk. I have sand in my pockets. She span around wide-eyed. Do you think? Yeah, we should go somewhere more secluded. They hurried to their usual clearing, and checked to make sure no one had followed them. So what should we do? Sakura shrugged. Maybe throw it? Throw it? Yeah, I think he can imbue his chakra into his sand and leave messages. I guess there's only one way to find out, he said before emptying his pockets as much as he could, and sure enough the sand formed a message: meet me at the Forest of Death tonight at midnight. He wants us to meet in the Forest of Death at night, isn't that a little dangerous? Kiba frowned. I guess he assumes we can handle it. Are you going to be able to sneak out okay? My parents are civilians, it should be easy. Shouldn't you be worried about yourself? My mom is out on a mission right now and Hannah knows our situation, so the only people I have to dodge are the other people in the compound. He didn't say where in the Forest of Death we should meet him. I can find him easily enough. How do you reckon he's gonna get away from his escort? Gar is smart, we don't need to worry about him. Sneaking out of the Inuzuka compound had been pretty easy. Getting across Konoha without drawing attention, especially with the added security due to the case cage's visit, was much harder. It made him glad that he'd left with plenty of time, since it had taken him over an hour to get to the overgrown training ground. He was actually proud of himself since stealth wasn't exactly his forte. He'd agreed to meet Sakura outside the Forest of Death at 11, though she was running little late, a fact he didn't hesitate to point out when she finally arrived 10 minutes late. You're late. It took longer to get here unnoticed than I thought it would. Okay. You mean to say that I planned ahead better than you? Don't get used to it, she mumbled darkly. Kiba grinned but decided to drop it before she decided to hit him. Guess we should head in then. Inside the forest, Kiba's senses were on overload. He could smell so many creatures around, it made him feel uneasy. The Forest of Death had been daunting the first time round, and he'd had Akamaru and his team who he'd trust with his life with him then. Now it was just him and Sakura, 5 years old and most definitely not at their full strength. To say he was nervous would be an understatement. Sakura, I don't feel too good about this. Let's just find him quickly. Have you picked up his scent yet? No, all I can smell are things that want to eat us. Sakura paled. How many? You really don't want to know. You know that's not very reassuring, right? Wasn't trying to hang on, I think I got something. Gaara? I think so, and it seems like he's not alone. Their approach had obviously been noticed as they had started to head in their direction. They're coming this way, in fact there they are. Gaara and a man that neither of them recognized had appeared before them. There were a tense few seconds before Gaara spoke up. It seems you got my message. Good, I have much to tell you.